Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we are unpacking a universal modern feeling. You know, that very specific sensation of being completely, utterly exhausted and mysteriously broke at the end of every single month. We have all been there, right? You get your paycheck, you pay your bills, you think you're doing okay, and then suddenly you're staring at your banking app wondering where on earth it all went.
I want you to think about your last 11 p.m. online purchase. Oh, you know the one. You were lying in bed, eyes half open, adding things to your cart that you definitely didn't need and probably completely forgot about until the delivery box showed up on your porch. We constantly beat ourselves up over these moments, thinking we're just terrible at budgeting. But what if I told you that an empty bank balance isn't actually a math problem? It is a biological one.
So, chartered accountant Nitin Kaushik recently went viral for pointing out a really fascinating truth. He said money doesn't run out first, energy does. The leak in your finances isn't just about a daily coffee habit, it's deeply emotional. Kaushik notes that a massive 70 to 80% of unplanned spending is driven by stress, boredom, or pressure. It is, quite literally, an attempt to buy your calm back after a taxing day.
Section 1. The Science of Decision Fatigue. How our brains run out of battery.
To really understand this, we have to look at the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for impulse control. I want you to think of it like a finite battery. Every single choice you make drains it, leading to a concept known as decision fatigue or ego depletion. Basically, this is the deterioration in the quality of decisions made after a prolonged period of decision-making. It's this invisible force that quietly depletes our self-control over the course of a day, leaving our exhausted brains incredibly vulnerable to impulsive choices by the evening.
To brilliantly illustrate this, let's look at the famous Columbia University jam study. Researchers set up a tasting booth in a grocery store. On one day, they offered shoppers a huge, overwhelming display of 24 different varieties of gourmet jam. Then, on another day, they offered just 6 varieties. Now, the giant display of 24 jams definitely attracted a larger crowd. I mean, we humans love the idea of infinite choice, right? But what actually happened when it was time to buy?
Well, when the brain was overwhelmed by 24 options, the cognitive bandwidth required to compare and choose was just way too high. A staggering tiny 3% of browsers who stopped at the large display actually made a purchase. The sheer volume of choices completely paralyzed them.
But let's look at the other scenario because this is where it gets wild. When shoppers were given only 6 choices, the conversion rate skyrocketed to 30%. That is a massive difference. It proves that strategic limitation actually helps the brain decide confidently. Too many choices create cognitive fatigue, and when we are fatigued, we either abandon the decision entirely or we just make a poor, impulsive one to get it over with.
Section 2. The Exhaustion and Debt Trap. Testing self-control in the lab.
Okay, so how does this mental exhaustion directly translate into bad financial behavior and ultimately debt? A fascinating study from DIW Berlin puts this exact dynamic under the microscope. Researchers wanted to know if reduced self-control directly causes impulsive borrowing, but to really test that, they had to purposefully drain their participants' willpower right there in the lab. So how do you even do that?
They used a classic, highly frustrating psychological tool called an ego depletion task. First, they had participants cross out every single letter E in a piece of text for 3 minutes, just to build a habit. Then came the depletion phase. They were given a new text, but this time they had to cross out the E only if it wasn't near a vowel. Now this forces the brain to constantly suppress its newly formed habit. It takes intense concentration and it completely, utterly exhausts the participants' cognitive resources.
With their brains thoroughly drained, the participants were then subjected to temptation. The researchers had artificially chilled the lab room down to a brisk 17 degrees Celsius. That's about 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Then they offered these mentally exhausted, shivering participants nice hot drinks. But here is the absolute kicker. The drinks were offered on credit, with real money interest rates applied to their overall compensation for the experiment.
And the researchers discovered a crucial formula. Participants whose willpower was depleted were significantly more likely to borrow money for that immediate gratification, the hot drink. But the effect was dramatically worse for those who also had low financial literacy. If you don't fully grasp the long-term cost of interest and your brain is just too tired to care, you will take the loan every single time to solve a short-term discomfort.
And listen, this isn't just an isolated lab trick. Data from KAAV publications comparing a mentally fatigued group to a rested control group shows some striking results.
The fatigued group made impulsive purchases 67% of the time. The rested group, only 29%. The tired folks were far more likely to just accept default options, and a staggering 73% succumbed to promotional marketing tactics. An exhausted brain basically just hands over the keys to your wallet to whatever marketer is standing in front of you.
Section 3. Revenge Bedtime Procrastination. Why we refuse to sleep.
So this exact same biological depletion destroys way more than just our budgets. It ruins our sleep schedules through a very real phenomenon called revenge bedtime procrastination. You know the exact feeling. Just one more video. Just 10 more minutes. When your daytime has been completely overscheduled, packed with obligations, and you've had zero autonomy, your brain fiercely rebels at night. It's this irresistible urge to reclaim time that feels truly yours, even though you know you will suffer for it the next morning.
Let's actually break down the brain chemistry behind this. During the day, you've completely used up your prefrontal self-control. By nightfall, your brain's reward circuits are actually amplified. They are desperate for a dopamine hit from a video or a game. Add to that a misalignment between your biological clock and your work schedule, plus a racing mind trying to offload the day's stress, and it becomes biologically incredibly difficult to just turn off the lights and go to sleep.
Section 4. Protecting Energy and Wealth. A science-backed playbook. So, if the villain is an exhausted, overstimulated brain that makes us spend money we don't have and stay up hours we shouldn't, how do we actually defeat it? Let's look at an actionable, science-backed playbook to protect both your energy and your wealth. First up, you have to schedule me time during the day so your brain doesn't panic and seek revenge at midnight. Second, build a low-arousal anchor routine at night, like reading or stretching, something that signals to your brain it's time to power down. Third, delay high dopamine triggers like social media scrolling right before bed. And finally, when it comes to spending, enforce C.A. Kaushik's golden rule, a strict 10 to 15-minute pause before any non-essential purchase.
Because as he brilliantly puts it, half of the impulsive buys vanish when your mind cools down. This is absolutely crucial. Taking a pause isn't about white-knuckling through temptation with pure discipline. It's literally about giving your exhausted brain the biological time it actually needs for the prefrontal cortex to come back online so clarity can return.
So I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought. Financial progress begins the day you stop counting receipts and start counting peaceful moments. When you fiercely protect your energy from being hijacked, you naturally protect your wealth. So, what will you count today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it helps you reclaim both your nights and your bank balance.